All right. This is Flywheel 110 Advanced User Interface, Workflow, and Data Management. We've already covered Flywheel 1 and 1 with some, if not most of you. And for the admins like Justin, Yulin, and Sachin, we did Flywheel 301 for the admin training. Some of this covers some of that 301, but this will be mostly new topics just relating to the UI and how to take advantage of it. Okay. A bit of what we'll cover, just some of the topics, a brief intro, and we'll discuss collections, running reports, some gear rules so you can chain the algorithms that you've built or the ones we have already built for you to try out. Group level tags, they're kind of like labels. Um, and I'll clarify what label means in Flywheel in a bit. Data provenance, how to monitor your jobs, and how you see past previously run jobs. Custom classifications, so um, how to define what you are interested in seeing and raise that up to a level you can easily view it in the UI and search for it. Some additional metadata manipulation, how to control who has access to your project. Some session templates, so if you have a particular project where you expect certain data to be there, you can set these like templates or rules so that it checks for those files or acquisitions or whatever. And moving on to how to move data between projects and within the project itself and out of the project. And lastly, how you can share data within Flywheel to other people who might be interested in the project you finished. All right, some brief introduction just to refresh our memory of some of the Flywheel data. um, so Flywheel is a data management and collaboration platform for biomedical research. You have all your data that can be sourced from different locations, different places. You have your modalities or scanners, or your PACS or VNA. And then we can also accept non-imaging data. Once you get it into Flywheel, you can capture, curate, compute, so you can run those algorithms, and then lastly share it. And you can do some AI development within Flywheel itself, but a lot of people seem to like to do it external Flywheel, so they can run it on their HPCs with their data there, um, train their algorithms or train their models on their HPC, or share it externally as well. I'm going to show you a few ways to do that. Um, and the whole sort of pipeline of Flywheel in this session. All right. How data are structured or sorted and put in Flywheel. This is what we'll discuss now. So you have a site, and maybe this is a good time for you all. No, I'll save that for later. You have your site level. So this is your Flywheel instance. You can access your Flywheel instance by going to app.flywheel.io. And if you've been added to that by your system admins, you can then access your core site. And then within that site, you have your groups. So this can be a PI who has a lab, or perhaps some other part of some other institution within that research organization. Maybe it's a department of radiology or oncology, something like that. You can split those up however you want. So then within each groups, you can have sets of projects. It's typically what kind of a study you're doing. So for each study, you're trying to investigate a question. You'll have your participants in that project, so you can separate them within those groups. And then the next tier lower than that is subject. So just like a patient would be another word for a subject. And session. So this is where there's typically some confusion. So this is, if we're talking DICOM language, this is a study. If we're talking about Flywheel, this is typically a session, a time point where a participant goes to get a scan, and they may have multiple scans at different scanners that day. So maybe a CT and a PT that will be on the same day or maybe a same week or so. If that's a different time point, depends on how you want to sort it. And that's typically called the session. And then within that session are the acquisitions themselves. So as I mentioned, you'll have one acquisition for a CT and one acquisition for a PT, and those will be two separate ones within a session. So the user content, your files can go anywhere within the project, from the project to the acquisitions. Same thing as metadata, and this we're talking about Flywheel metadata now. You can put it anywhere, those levels as well. And then your analyses can be run, and these are not just so these are like the algorithms that you run on Flywheel, and then there are two kinds of analyses where you have a separate container that appears. So you'll have another one with like a project container that has an analysis. The subject will have an analysis container. That's one type of gear. And then if it's in any other kind of gear, it won't have its own container. It will typically you'll attach it to directly into one of these other containers. User permissions are set at the site group projects level, and then you have some templates and rules that you can view between project and acquisition and sets, and of course the collections. Any questions so far? Okay. We've already kind of covered most of this at the beginning, so I'll just briefly mention that if you need additional compliance, say you wanted to develop an algorithm and you later wanted to apply for FDA approval, then we've got some special instances that you call validated instances that you can use that are 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, and of course some of the other ones that we already do just for our core compliance are listed here. All right. This is an example workflow, data sources from different places, and then someone would upload it to Flywheel. You can de-identify it and upload it through the command line interface if you're familiar with running commands in your computer. The web UI or use our SDK or the connectors if you have one. Once it's in Flywheel, you can, again, this is just a sample workflow. You can do automatic role-based metadata extraction. You can classify it, do some QA, and you can do some format conversion. For example, you can convert DICOM files into NIfTI files. We already have the DICOM to NIfTI converter algorithm available. I think it's called DICOM DCM to NIX. Then you can do some user-defined curation, tagging, cohort generation, search your data based on the metadata you've created and the classification, create some reports, and share and collaborate. Again, do some analysis, workflows, and insight later if that's some additional things that you'd like to do. All right, this is the point where we get to the demo. So if you'd like to follow along, you can do so. Again, you can access it on app.flywheel.io. Sign in, and you're going to see a screen. Maybe I can share this. Stop sharing my screen now so you can see a window. Reshare my screen window, and I think it's this one. No. So I have to share the right one. Hey, how do I see my window? Oh, here it is. All right. So once you're here in your central login, you go to launch, and it will bring you up to there. So just to go back, you can go here, go to your organization. I think you only have one. I'm logged into several different organizations. There's a CUIMC. You land on this page, launch, and it takes you to that one. All right. Let's continue with the demo. Okay. So first, let's talk about and refresh our memories, basic search and advanced search. So I have this project here that I'm logged into. I can click on search. This is basic search. You don't have to worry about this button that I just clicked. It's a little bug here on this version of Flywheel. You shouldn't have an issue with it. And then you can sort what kind of files you want. So let's say I want Nifty files, and maybe I want OPTs, and then that'll come out. So I have these Nifty files available for me. That's a basic search. We can do not a basic search, but an advanced search by clicking here. And we can search for something like maybe our T1 weighted files. So within the file name itself, so file that name contains T1 weighted, and it'll start pulling up all these ones. So you can autocomplete if you want, but I'm just going to leave it blank to show me all the ones that have T1W in the name, the file name. And just to note, I believe you need at a minimum of 3 characters for use for this to run correctly. And then that'll pull out my T1 weighted subjects, sessions, acquisition, and files, and we can just verify that all of these have T1 weighted, and they do. All right. Now, what do I do with this? If I can do several things. One of the things that we can do is make this into a new data set, and we can call that a collection. So a collection can span multiple projects. I only have access to one right now in this instance, but suppose we had a lot of different projects and we wanted just to analyze T1 weighted across different ones, right? And we did all kinds of filters on them so that we can create a new cohort from different projects. So let's do that with a collection. So let's restart this, and we'll go to a search. We'll do DICOMs, and maybe we'll just do T1 DICOM, and I have to click on view all data because that bug. All right, so what action can you take? You can do the collections either at the session or the acquisition level. So if I click on acquisition tab, you can go to actions. Let's first select some data. Sorry about that. Click on this to select all of them on this page. And if you have more than 100, it'll tell you if you want to select all of them. So you can select all results here. So you have selected all of them. Now I can do add to a collection. So we can create, if we have already a collection, we can add it to there. But let's create a new one, and we'll call it DICOM T1 sample previously. Okay, so now that we've created our collection, we can exit the search to bring back our typical buttons. The way you access your collections is still under data, collections, and here we have our T1 sample 2. So it just, by default, has it in the session view. So each one of these will be a session. And it's just referencing where that data are, where those data are. So you still get all that information. It's not duplicated. It's just kind of referencing where that is. And now I have a collection of these. And you can easily share these if you wanted to with other people once you have a collection built. Okay, let's move on to reports. So there are different types of reports you can run. With the project report, we can select a project, and this mainly gives you demographics and some information about the structure and how much data there are, unique subjects, male subjects, females under 18, etc. It's not, you'll see a lot of these blanks because they're not filled out. So in our project Alzheimer demo, the field that you would have to fill out would be these, and you can do some, let's say if you have a CSV file or Excel sheet, if that's a familiar term for you. If you have that, you can use a gear that has that additional demographic information to populate like the subject level information here, and then you'll get that clean table and filled out completely. That would be a project report. You can also do a usage report. So if you're interested in seeing how much space you've used for that particular project, how many gears you've run or algorithms you run within that project, and how many sessions there are. You can see the whole for the sites if you're an admin. You can also do a custom report for some reason if you wanted to see how much data were ingested between a certain time point, and you can set end date project and then it'll generate a report for you that way. Lastly, you can see who has been accessing your project by going to the access logs, and you can filter by different things. Date range, we'll say me project, Alzheimer demo, and then I'll just see how I've been accessing it already. So I've just been viewing a lot of things here. You can also export this if you wanted to somehow, for some reason, report it externally to see who's been accessing your project as well. All right, moving on from reports, I'll take a quick pause to see if anyone has any questions. I'm going to not hearing or seeing. Let me see if there's anything in the chat. Oh. Okay. All right, let's continue. And let's talk about gear rules. Remember, you have your algorithms, and these are called gears that have been installed on your site. And so these are the different ones we have installed on this demo site. And when we say gear rules, we're really talking about building a gear or algorithm pipeline. So you can do that by going to your project. You can go to the kebab menu, and then you can click on gear rules. So you can see that we've created all these gear rules for this project, so that when we create a gear rule, we say, how do we want to trigger it? So in this case, this is we can rename it. This is my DICOM splitter gear rule. We say, well, what priority do you want for your job? We want a medium priority. We don't really want it. It's not really critical. So just leave it at that. We say, at what level is the data going to come from? So it's at the acquisition level. So the files that we're interested in are at the acquisition container. Then here are the rules that we make, or the things that would trigger. So we say the file type, if it's DICOM, anything that's DICOM that's coming into my project, we want this gear to run. And then we select the rule, the gear itself. So in this case, it was a DICOM splitter. We've selected it from a list of options. And you can configure it whether you want this to run the latest version of the gear. If you do so, it'll throw a warning saying that you must use the default configuration of the gear if that's the case that you want. So if you don't want to use the latest version of the gear, so that means when someone uploads a new gear to the site, 2.02 to 2.03, then this gear will always use the latest version. We're not going to modify that for now.
Excuse me, could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
This is Roman. Yeah, so when you're talking about just below the DICOM splitter, if the data from and there is a drop-down acquisition, what are the options there? Is it subject, project? Like, just show the list of. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
okay.
and it can be also any
Okay,
container.
yeah, yeah, thank you.
And it can even be from an output from a different, like remember when we said analysis output, right? So let's say if a gear is an analysis gear and it generates an analysis container, you'll have data in that analysis container that came from that gear that ran, so you can trigger it from there.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks for the question. Okay. So, and I'm just going to show you how this one is then, it comes after the splitter. So the gear itself, the way we chain them together is by using tags. So one DICOM file is going through, it goes through the DICOM splitter, and then after it goes to the DICOM splitter, we add a tag to the file to say that, oh, we have just run the DICOM splitter. So when that gear finishes running, it uploads it back to Flywheel with the DICOM splitter tag, and then this will trigger this next rule. So DICOM fixer will be run if it detects this DICOM splitter within that file itself. And you can see that several of these are chained that way. And we have an SDK, an SDK, but also additional tools that we've made available for developers to sort of easily add tags to files so that they can do this sort of chaining very easily. And you can see that these are kind of continue that way. Right, so that's just an example.
Just a second. So since you're talking about the chaining, I mean, maybe we'll talk about it more. If well, let's say DICOM fixer, let's say it depends on sort of two inputs. I mean, I can't imagine now, but something like basically outputs of two different DICOM splitters. Like how would you chain that? Like for example, I have two DICOM files which have to go through some initial processing, and then both of them go into the input to the third gear.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So in that case, you have to do a certain type of gear that gets going to run. It's usually you want to trigger them by like, I just to verify that I'm understanding this correctly. So let's say you have one file that's an input for one gear, right? And then that gear generates two files, right? But now you
no. That there is a certain gear, like new gear, which needs outputs of two previous gears.
Yeah. That's where I was. Yeah. That's where I was going to get to. So
okay.
So now you have an output from, oh, I see, from different gears, right?
I mean, it could be from different gears, could be from the same gear. For example, like let's try to give example. Like two files go, like two DICOMs go, each of them goes through DICOM to NIfTI conversion, which is the same gear, right? But obviously the outputs will be different, and then both of them, let's say, have to be merged to create new merged NIfTI file.
Yeah. So then you would have to make a new gear that would do probably two things. One of them is to trigger on one of those files that's being generated. And if you know that there's going to be a certain order, let's say if file 1 is typically generated first, file 2 gets generated secondly, right? So then you would say, I want to trigger off the second file because I know it's coming last, right? So then that gear will trigger off that second file. And then within that file, it's gear rule itself. This would maybe like a session level gear so that your files are generated in the same session in the same session, so maybe at a different acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will look for that second file using the SDK, and then pull that as an input that way.
Okay, so this is outside of what you were showing. I thought I was trying to understand the example, but it's sort of different example.
Yeah,
okay.
No, yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah, that would be a little bit more development heavy. This kind of pipeline is usually for like one single file along the way. But if you're talking about a more complicated, but it's doable. You just have to do more development.
No. Yeah. I just did not see the options. And sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. No, these are great questions. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. Yeah, and I think unless anyone has any other questions about gear rules, I can move on to the next topic. All right, we talked about tagging. So we'll talk about groups and tags, what that means. So as mentioned, and it just showed you, we can use these tags that are added to files to trigger these gear rules. So let's say if you're doing sort of manual tagging, I had a use case with a customer where they took scans, and sometimes they would have to repeat the scan because the QA didn't work out, and they just knew themselves that they had to manually check it later to select which one of those acquisitions was the correct one. So then they would have to go ahead and tag it, and then that would start the chain of like the automatic gear pipeline after that. So if you go to your groups, you can select what kind of custom tags you can generate through the UI. So for my different groups, I have different tags defined. So it's in the tag section here. So in neurology, we have rerun, QC fail, QC pass. But if we're more oncology or ophthalmology, maybe I want to label it if it's a color fundus image or an OCT. So if we go to our project, Alzheimer's demo, we can see, let's click on one of these files. And if you go to this here, and it's the information, you can also open it through the kebab menu and click it there, but this is a kind of a faster way to access it. And these are the tags that have been added to this file itself. And then again, this is flywheel metadata, we're not touching the file, just flywheel metadata. And these are all the gears that have been run, but QC pass is one that I think might have been, well, maybe it's from another source. But you can see if I try to type something, it'll automatically give me the options that have been approved for projects in this group. So I can have the rerun tag or QC fail, and I don't have to worry about some error being made. All right, so close that. You can tag at different levels, not just the file. So if we wanted to tag this acquisition, you can go to the kebab menu, click on information there, add the tag there. Again, we can do that there. I'm going to close that. Or the session, click on the sessions tab here, add different things, but we're interested in tags there. And of course, the subject as well. All right. And again, as I mentioned, these are pretty great because you can trigger gear rules from these tags themselves. All right. Any questions about this before I move on? All right. Job monitoring. So once you run, let's say some gears, you can see the status of it in several different ways. So if you go to the jobs log, should have access to this table here. And you can do additional filtering. You can do by pending, running. If you're interested in your, what gear that's been run, who ran it, and project, and what kind of tags it has as well. These are all the filters that you can apply, so you can see what data. And if you have any failed, gears, you can look at them that way. Once you find what you need, you can click on that, and then this tab will open. this little side window will open, and you can see information about how it was run, where it came from, and what kind of outputs it is. It had how it was configured, and the log itself. So something failed here. Oh, we checked it out, and maybe we can fix it somehow. The other ways you can monitor the job log is by going to the project and sessions tab, and then you can look at either your provenance, taking a while because it ran 192 jobs, and you can view all the jobs that have been run within this session. So all these belong to different files or different acquisitions. We can click on, if something failed, then you can try to hit the retry button there. Maybe that'll work. Sometimes it might fail because maybe the API was too busy at that point trying to upload a file. That rarely happens, and if it does fail because of that, it usually retries by itself anyways. The system usually detects something like that. Okay, you can view the log directly going there, and just show you a little neat trick in case you wanted to, let's say if Flywheel maintains a gear and you want to share the job ID or link to the job, you can just go down here after you click it. And this is all we need to look at the job, but if you want to help us out some more, you can click on copy there, go to your jobs log here to share the entire link. You can click on this, and just any sort of job that you click there, you see the job number here for that one. You replace the one you copied, and then this is the link you would share with us when you report a ticket, and that'll go directly to that. Hit enter, and that's the job that was just run. It's passed and has the same information that we just clicked. Okay. All right. Custom classification. I think most people here are familiar with what classifying means. So if you have, person who has blue eyes or brown eyes, that kind of thing. But just that's kind of a general example, but more of a medical imaging example. Let's say if we go to our project, we go to our sessions tab again, and then we have our file here. So what we've done is that we've changed some gears, and one of them is, or two of them. One of them extracted metadata from the file itself and populated it as Flywheel metadata. And the second one, it used that metadata and a set of rules, and additional, maybe like the acquisition label or the name. So let's say if it was named localizer, right? Based on some of those rules, it classified it and gave us this. So information that it's not buried deep in the header, right? And something like way down here, it's the DICOM header. So this is the first gear, populated all this information for us directly to the header from the DICOM file. But that second gear took that information and populated these fields. So for an MR image, it says this has got some 2D, SPGR, localizer, and T1. So we've done that. That's great. We can just view it at this level through the UI. But the other thing is when we search for it, right? Again, we can easily just filter what we need that way. And you can do not only these kinds of classification, you can do custom metadata. So additional metadata that you want, let's say we've added that gear, added that metadata to here, header, and that's standard header.dicom, or if it's like a Nifty file, the header.nifty, it'll populate it there. QC is another one that is populated by a gear, but let's say if you wanted to populate your own metadata, then you can just go to that little plus sign, and if it's nested metadata, you can do something like top one, and then you can do another object And maybe this will be a string or something right here, right? So within this second level, we'll do a string here. String 1 and the value of, I don't know, this value. All right, and then we can save that information and we have it there. You can do that, again, at different levels. So the acquisition, you can do that there. Information, customer information, you can add it there. Session there. Subject there. And then project as well. Or you can do it here directly. There's an information tab. And add it there. And any sort of information that you want to attach to the project that might be relevant to all the data or have like information. Anyways, the CSV file, right? We've added it because we know it's a good place to put it there. We've attached it to the project, and we can launch it. If it's a CSV file, we can even view it in Flywheel directly. There it is. All right. Perfect. Anything about metadata? Oh. Looking at the questions here, yes, the recording will be available later if you have to leave early. You can send that out. Just verify that we're still recording. Yeah, we still are. Got it. All right, checking on time. We have about 18 minutes. Okay. Suppose you want to see who has access to your project. You can do that several ways. So if you're here at the project directly, you can do click on the Kebab menu, click on permissions, and these are the users who have access and different types of access. So if they're admin, they can do pretty much anything to that data. But you can add maybe a new person and select a role. So we can do, these are the default ones. So the admin, read, write, and read only. The admin are the default ones. You can also create a new role. This is typically only done by site admins, but within that you can customize what they can do with your data. But yeah, let's say this person's only read only, then they can only, of course, read or copy this project and download data that way. We can add it, and then we have to make sure to click on the save one. I'm going to discard the changes now. So that's one way you can do it directly from the project. If someone makes you an admin within the group, again, 3 different levels: site level admin, group level admin, project level admin. But if you are a group admin, then you can do what kind of permissions you have for the group itself. So Mike Maker is an admin for this group, for this permission, and you can also do a projects template. So what this does is if anyone adds a new project within your group, all these people will be given permissions to that project when it gets created, and you can set the default for the permissions there. And then if you want to retroactively add those users, you can do so as you add users to our project in this group. Okay, any other questions about this? All right. Session templates. As mentioned earlier, we got data into our project, but we want a way to automatically check or verify that the data that we expect to arrive actually did arrive. So you can do so by creating these session templates. So back to your project, you can, on the Kebab menu, go to templates, and here's your session template. So if we create a new can create a new template. So if within a session, right, and I'll just go back to this example. If we know that we expect to have a localizer, spin echo, then we can also see how many, right? So we expect to have one localizer, 2 spin echoes, a T2W, TT1, right? All these. We can create the session, and when we say label, we're talking about the name. It's kind of a weird thing that Flywheel does. But these right here are called labels in Flywheel, but you can just refer to them as names. The SDK, if you use the SDK, and you try to access what this is, then that's going to be known as a label. But at the file level, it's going to be known as the name. All right, so the template, create a new template. Let's say one localizer, right? And these are rules that we're adding to check what kind of labels we expect at the acquisition level. If we know what kind of file, we can say, oh, a classification, I will make sure it's a T1, right? File count. So if I'm supposed to have 2 T1s, maybe I can add, oops, sorry. Maybe it's a T1 there. Maybe we expect a T2 right here, right? So at file classification, we know that we have one here. And then we can add another acquisition. So I think we said we wanted to have spin echo. Maybe that was 2 of them, right? So 2 spin echo, something like that. For the acquisition, I think if you just leave it as the start, then that would work. But this thing also works on regexes. I don't really use regexes, but if you're familiar with that, you can use that. I always have to go to something like regex 101 to make sure that I'm using it correctly. Right. So once you're done with this template, you set it, and if it catches anything, it'll flag. You'll see I want to delete this. Within the session itself, you'll have like an icon right here that appears that tells you how many sessions do not match that session template. So then you can review those and see where data are missing. Any questions about that? Okay. Let's talk about how to move data. There are different types of ways you can move data. So we have this actions menu. We already showed we can do several things with it. One of the actions is we can move direct data out of it. From, let's say if we wanted to move this acquisition, right? So we click on this acquisition and notice that it doesn't have a check mark here, which means that only less than all of the acquisitions within the session were clicked. So we can go to actions, move, and then move acquisition to a session. So you would select your project, destination, and where to put that. If you click it at this level, so you click all of them, you can move it to a different project or a different session, or acquisition. Or move all acquisitions that you've clicked into a different session. If you click multiple sessions, right, you get sort of a reduced menu, so you can move all these sessions within the same subject. All right. Perfect. If you want to move a file, for some reason and this shouldn't be like a bulk mistake, but if you were uploading like maybe a few files directly to here, let's say if you did this something like, upload data to acquisition, right? And you added data here, and there's only a few files that this would happen, right? But you clicked the wrong acquisition. You can select this file, so you wait until you hover over the file name itself until the little hand icon appears, and you can just click and drag it over to the acquisition that it actually should go. You can also rename this. So what I did is just double clicked here, rename it, and then once you finish with it, click on the check mark and it'll rename it. All right. And I'm going to show you probably the most powerful way of like not moving data, but copying data that we have in Flywheel. So it's called Smart Copy, which means that when you copy data from here and into a different project, you will not duplicate that file in your storage system. So you're not paying for extra cost of putting that file in a different project. What you're going to do is instead is create a reference to the file itself, and then all the Flywheel metadata that goes with it is the one that gets duplicated. So a lot less storage cost. So how do you do that? So if I have a project, you can go to the settings, sharing and reuse, and we've allowed project copying. And with that, this little button appears. That's a copy button. You select which group. The project name has to be a brand new project. Unfortunately, right now, through the UI, through the SDK, it's kind of possible to manipulate a few things. But through the UI, it has to be a new project. And then you can filter from the data set itself what files you want to smart copy into this new project. And also what kind of data, well, not just what kind, but if it's, the tags as well, metadata, and the notes that you've left, maybe analyses, or this empty containers for some reason if you wanted to copy that as well. And then you can create these rules. So maybe the file.name, right, contains or whatever is regex, and then use a regex that way to sort of filter this that way. And then you would copy that, and it will create a new smart copy of that project. All right.
Hey, Jesus, does permissions carry over from that permission template within that group?
Yes, from the group level. So from that template for any new project, doesn't matter if it's smart copy project, it will populate those same permissions. All right. And lastly, how do you get data out of Flywheel through the UI? There's several different ways. Just the simplest way is just direct using this download button, right? For this one single file. If you wanted this whole acquisition, then you can click on the acquisition and you just download that. If you want a session, you can click on this session here and download files. It'll give you what kind of files you want to prompt from all those. And if these, maybe just these two, and then you'll download, and it tells you how much you're downloading, number of files selected. But what I want to show you is through the UI, we have an exporter that's really fast for big projects, and we have it here in exports. So let's talk about how to set up this new export. So you can typically for the export, it has to be two different types of storage systems. Either it's going to be a cloud storage system or an NFS system that you've connected to your Flywheel instance. And the NFS takes a little bit more configuration. Flywheel has to do all that. But if you have an external cloud storage, you can add it here by going to Interfaces, External Storage, and we've already configured one. You can see what we've done. So account, name, container, what you want to kind of prefix it, and then whatever access key. And if you want to use that storage container to allow both import from that container and export to that storage container. So we've enabled it. So if you go to our project again. We go to exports. We'll create a new project export. We'll name it, whatever. Teast. Description, export destination. One we've created. Next. All right, so then you select our rules again. What do you want to include? What do you want to exclude when you export? And we'll just leave that. Now we're talking about the time point. So every time you create an export, you're creating a snapshot of the entire project, which means it kind of freezes the state of the data in case someone comes back later, a month or two, they either add new data or change the metadata itself, right? You still have that snapshot of before all that new stuff was added. So you can do a previous time point, or you can do, current date and time, right? Which we're creating a new one. Then you see, you can even do a little export file test at the end to sort of see if it'll work for everything. So you have a chance to run it, a little test, and make sure everything's okay before you can export, terabytes of data to a new storage. And then you begin your export. I'm going to cancel it here. All right, we have a few minutes left, so I'm just going to cover the last part, unless anyone has any questions about that. All right, lastly, site catalog. So we have a project, we've done it, we've gotten it ready. We are now ready. We want to share it with other people in our site. So we can go to project, click on the about menu. We'll go to our settings, sharing and reuse, and then the project sharing. When we enable this, people will be able to see it, see this project in the site catalog. So you would fill out this information. So what institution you're from, maybe your Department of Radiology, your URL that you want to share. This is important, the contact name and the email that has to be correct, because this is the only way they'll be able to contact you if you have no other way, for other collaborators. Therapeutic area, maybe dermatology, I don't know, click a few organs, and you can copy existing project description, save it, and then that'll appear in the site catalog. And the way you would view that project that others are telling you that they want to share is by clicking on this projects tab and then the site catalog. And we have one that's already been, that's part of it. So we want to contact the MENA directly. And then the MENA can share with us the different options. They can either add us to their project, right? And maybe only give us read-only permissions. So we can just download the project directly. If they have enabled, if a MENA has enabled smart copy, then you can create the smart copy of that project. And now you can do whatever you want in that project, because it's not going to mess with the original one. So if you change the metadata or accidentally undo something, run gears on that other project, you have write permissions in that other project. You can manipulate everything. Now, if you change the file itself, right? If you go open the file, the gear opens the file, and you change the name or manipulate something within the file itself and then save it back to the project, you are creating a new file. It's no longer a reference to that original project file. So then that's when you get like duplicate of data. It's not really duplicate because now you've changed the file. All right. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover. Are there any questions before we go? All right. I'll just wrap it up by saying thanks so much.
Hey, so I just wanted to jump in real quick. Did everybody get, did we share both? I guess we can I just want to make sure that we share both kind of the both prod as well as sandbox. Did we share both those links? So people can log in and
That's up
start.
to you all how you want to share that. I don't. Your sandbox links is Columbia.flywheel.io, but that's not like a permanent place. It's just for us to kind of show. So, but the central one's like the one you probably want to share, and the more permanent one, right? We're just kind of letting you play with the sandbox for a while.
Yep. So I just wanted to share those two. Please check your logins if you need to be able to log in and you can't today. Just go ahead and let myself and Yulin know. We'll get your account kind of built out, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll just final words. Hopefully, you got a way that you can view, get your data in, start playing it with the UI, so you can run your creation pipelines. You understand how to use tags and run these automatic pipelines, and you can once you have your data curated, you can actually share them in the different sharing methods that we have available, either whether it be exporting it outside of Flywheel or smart copying a project and things like that. All right, thanks very much. We'll be sharing this video. Have a great day.